Good morning, everyone.
Good morning.
Welcome to Beacon, where our mission is to be radically inclusive as a religious community that feeds the human spirit and heals the world. I'm very happy to be with you here today. For those of you that don't know me, I am Pablo Vasquez, usually the intern minister here, and for this month, the summer minister. I am here. I'm here all of July. My pronouns are any. My description is I am caramel complected with long curly black hair with hopefully not too much sweat perspirating from me in this very humid northern weather. Usually it's Houston that feels this way. So I'm glad nonetheless to be here with all of you, and I'm wearing a flowery black and multicolored shirt with red pants. As I mentioned, I'll be here all of July. Every Sunday, the theme will be freedom, and I will be speaking on different themes of freedom in different ways up until I leave on August 2nd. Every Wednesday at 7 p.m., I'll be doing a class on recognizing authoritarianism needed in these times. So please, if you're able to and want to engage in discussion or learn more about ways of recognizing it, how authoritarianism manifests itself, please do come Wednesdays at 7 p.m. at the library upstairs. And next week's class theme will center more about theological authoritarianism, which is something that Unitarian Universalists have always done their best to fight against. And I have an announcement also as well from the Social Justice Committee. So it's an invitation to a Beacon Social Justice Team meeting. Let me read it out loud for you. How are you? If you're feeling uncomfortable or concerned about the recent SCOTUS decisions, debate, and government actions, inactions, and communications, you are not alone. Join us for some conversation, community action planning as part of the upcoming Social Justice Committee meeting. This will be a nonpartisan conversation focused on things we can do to protect and preserve our democracy and our values. This will be tomorrow, July 8th at 7:30 p.m. here and on Zoom as well. So with that all aside, thank you for joining me here today, and let's begin this service.
Good morning. My name is Misa Iwama. I'm the Director of Music Ministry. My pronouns are she, her, and I'm here today with John O'Neill. Thank you, John. We're going to start this morning by singing together hymn number 16, "'Tis a Gift to Be Simple." And I invite you to rise in any and all ways possible as we join our voices. 16. 'Tis a gift to be simple, 'tis a gift to be free, 'tis a gift to come down where we ought to be. And when we find ourselves in a place just right, to be in the valley of love and delight. When true simplicity is gained, to bow and to bend, we shan't be ashamed to turn will be our delight. So by turning, we come round right. Let's sing it again. 'Tis a gift to be simple, 'tis a gift to be free, 'tis a gift to come down where you want to be. And when we find ourselves in a place just right, to be in the valley of love and delight. When true simplicity is gained, to bow and to bend, we shan't be ashamed to turn will be our delight. To by turning, we come round right. It's beautiful.
Now we will light this chalice. I'll be reading some words from Summer al-Bayati to light this. Lighting this chalice may feel difficult today. This symbol of justice, known to be a light of hope for the marginalized, a message of sanctuary for the oppressed, a flame that feels lost or diminished somehow. How do we rekindle this fire of compassion? How do we rekindle this fire of mercy? A famous verse within the Quran tells us that with hardship comes ease. With hardship comes ease. We welcome the ease, O God of justice. We welcome the ease, O Spirit of love. We welcome the ease and rekindle this flame from our tears, our quiet suffering, from our collective prayers for those who cry for freedom. We welcome the ease and rekindle this flame on behalf of those who feel abandoned and betrayed. We welcome the ease and rekindle this flame for all the children who ask, why can we not live in peace as other children do? May lighting this challenge today, no matter how difficult it may feel, help us to rekindle compassion and mercy within the deep crevices of our hearts, so that we can, once again, bring justice and hope to a world struggling to find its humanity, struggling to find its soul. Thank you.
Good morning. My name is Adam Gonerman. My pronouns are he, him. I am a bald, middle-aged white man of average height wearing a black and white checkered shirt to distinguish from other people wearing checkered shirts. Looking up here in the front, not you. And jeans. Chaplains are trained lay ministers. We wear a maroon stole like this one during services to signify that we're available as a resource for deep listening and pastoral care during times of loss, anxiety, or physical or emotional challenges. Or, on the other hand, if you have something good going on and you want to share it, you can share that with a chaplain. Sometimes you just want to share the good things going on. If you would like to talk to a chaplain or have questions about our ministry, please feel free to approach me or any member of our ministry team or visit our Beacon website. Confidentiality is always a sacred commitment for us. We also extend our community's spiritual care by facilitating our weekly community chalice or candle lighting ritual. So today, we light a candle of love and support this morning for all who are dealing with difficult medical diagnoses. A candle for those who are grieving, offering them comfort and solace in their time of loss. A candle of hope and prayer that our nation will use sober discernment as we approach a national election this fall. And for these and so much more, we now invite you to come forward and light a candle here in our sanctuary or wherever you are.
Our next song is I've Got Peace Like a River. Now that's number 100 in the hymnal, but you might just be able to listen and to sing along. So I invite you to rise again in any and all ways possible as we sing together. I've got peace like a river. I've got peace like a river. I've got peace like a river in my soul. I've got peace like a river. I've got peace like a river. I've got peace like a river in my soul. I've got joy. I've got joy like a fountain. I've got joy like a fountain. I've got joy like a fountain in my soul. I've got joy like a fountain. I've got joy like a fountain. I've got joy like a fountain in my soul. I've got love. I've got love like an ocean. I've got love like an ocean. I've got love like an ocean in my soul. I've got love like an ocean. I've got love like an ocean. I've got love like an ocean in my soul. I've got strength. I've got strength like a mountain. I've got strength like a mountain. I've got strength like a mountain in my soul. In my soul, I've got strength like a mountain. I've got strength like a mountain. I've got strength like a mountain in my soul.
So, yesterday actually marks the anniversary of one of the greatest figures in our country's history, Fredrick Douglass, reading his very important speech, What to a Slave is the 4th of July, in which he was invited by a community of sort of debaters, basically people who would gather together to listen to great speakers. Back in the day, that was the entertaining thing to do before HBO. So, but Fredrick Douglass was confused. Why would they invite a former slave to celebrate the 4th of July when so many people were still in bondage? And so I'll read two sections for you here. First is the most famous part of them all. It's a very long speech, and I recommend when you get the chance, please read it all at home. What to the American slave is your 4th of July? I answer, a day that reveals to him more than all other days in the year the gross injustice and cruelty to which he is the constant victim. To him, your celebration is a sham, your boasted liberty an unholy license, your national greatness swelling vanity. Your sounds of rejoicing are empty and heartless, your denunciation of tyrants, brass-fronted impudence. Your shouts of liberty and equality, hollow mockery. Your prayers and hymns, your sermons and thanksgivings with all your religious parade and solemnity are to him mere bombast, fraud, deception, impiety, and hypocrisy. A thin veil to cover up crimes which disgrace a nation of savages. There is not a nation on the earth guilty of practices more shocking and bloody than are the people of these United States at this very hour. And furthermore, he states the following, and I'll only read a section of this. Fellow citizens, above your national tumultuous joy, I hear the mournful wail of millions, whose chains, heavy and grievous yesterday, are today rendered more intolerable by the jubilee shouts that reach them. If I do forget, if I do not faithfully remember those bleeding children of sorrow this day, may my right hand forget her cunning, and may my tongue cleave to the roof of my mouth. To forget them, to pass lightly over their wrongs, and to chime in with the popular theme would be treason most scandalous and shocking, and would make me a reproach before God and the world. My subject, then, fellow citizens, is American slavery. I shall see this day and its popular characteristics from the slave's point of view, standing there identified with the American bondsman, making his wrongs mine. I do not hesitate to declare with all my soul that the character and conduct of this nation never looked blacker to me than on this 4th of July. Whether we turn to the declarations of the past or the professions of the present, the conduct of the nation seems equally hideous and revolting. America is false to the past, false to the present, and solemnly binds herself to be false to the future. Standing with God and the crushed and bleeding slave on this occasion, I will, in the name of humanity, which is outraged, in the name of liberty, which is fettered, in the name of the Constitution and the Bible, which are disregarded and trampled upon, dare to question and to denounce with all the emphasis I can command, everything that serves to perpetuate slavery, the greatest sin and shame of America. And as you can see, Fredrick Douglass does not mince words on how many of your fellow Americans must feel every 4th of July since the beginning of this country. We have gotten rid of the great sin of slavery, but it continues in some ways through the prison system, through the misuse and forced labor of immigrants to this country, and more so. So please do meditate on that, and if you get the chance, please read more of Fredrick Douglass's speech. Thank you.
Good morning, Beacon. Good morning. I am Marty Rothfelder. My preferred pronouns are he, him, his. I'm a pale white man in my 60s, standing at 5'8.5" inches. And I'm wearing a yellow and blue checked shirt, short sleeved with button-down collars. I first came to this congregation in December of 1991. During my time in this congregation, I've had the opportunity to teach virtually every level of religious education, have served on countless committees, boards, teams, have helped set up for, cook, and clean up after countless events. My children all grew up in this congregation for which I, and more importantly, they are grateful. Why do I keep showing up and contributing and doing things at Beacon? I guess I just love this community and Unitarian Universalism and all that they do for not just myself, for my family, but for the community and the world. One of the things I've been involved in over the years is our social justice activity. Allow me to focus on just one subset of that activity, funding of various organizations. As you may know, we currently devote 12 of our Sunday plates to organizations that outside of Beacon that are doing good in the world. Over the close to 20 years or so we've been doing this, we have provided hundreds of thousands of dollars to organizations. In addition, the social justice team uses portions of our budgeted funds to assist other organizations as well. I'm proud to say that the organizations we provide money to are vetted. We review filings at the Internal Revenue Service, other information that's available on organizations. When appropriate and possible, we do on-site visits of organizations. I've personally spent time at several organizations that we provide money to, and at least 3 organizations which we decided not to send money to. At present, I am particularly happy and proud that the social justice team recently donated $2,000 to Med Global. Med Global is a nonprofit organization dedicated to providing medical care to around the world to vulnerable populations. This donation will be focused on Med Global's ongoing efforts in Gaza to deliver essential health care and humanitarian aid. As you know, People there are currently experiencing displacement, famine, and daily violence, and those words don't even adequately describe what's happening there. As part of the social justice team's process, Med Global was vetted and compared to other organizations. It was important to us that Med Global allowed us to specifically target our donation to Gaza. This donation is one of the hundreds of things that this congregation has done in the last 30 years, which keeps me coming back and donating. I hope part of all of what we do encourages you to be engaged as well. Thank you.
Thank you, Marty, and our offering will now be most gratefully received.
This next song is called Hymn to Freedom, and it's written by Oscar Peterson. When every heart joins every heart and together yearns for liberty, that's when we'll be free. When every hand joins every hand and together molds our destiny, that's when we'll be free. Any hour, any day, the time will soon come when we will live in dignity, that's when we'll be free. When every voice joins in our song and together singing harmony, that's when we'll be free. When every voice joins in our song and together singing harmony, that's when we'll be free.
Can everyone hear me? Okay, great. Excellent. So, I wanted to start out today's sermon with a bit of a story. I had gone yesterday out to meet one of my best friends. It's basically like a brother to me, very much family. And he surprised me. I was just like, let's go into New York City. I was just like, great, sure. Very few people warned me that it feels like a sauna there this time. Nonetheless, I had a blast. Huh? On? Okay, I thought it was on. Is it on? Okay, this mic is off. Okay, anyway. So we had gone out to explore various different sites. He's a big sort of history buff. He's a Catholic, so we went to visit historic sites and beautiful churches. One of the sites we went to was the Francis Tavern, which is where Washington bid farewell to his officers, but also where the British set up their basically freedom court. They called upon the slaves of the Americas to come to that very tavern, make their case for freedom, and that they would be emancipated if they declared loyalty to the crown. Many were, of course, granted this freedom and then went on to live in Nova Scotia. Some were denied, and in some cases, even the British straight up just did not keep their promises. When we got to that section on the tour, I heard someone behind me say, well, at least we're not the only nation that doesn't keep their promises. And I thought, what sad comfort is that? Only an American can make that statement, right? But it got me to thinking, how in so many cases it is something both to somewhat be laughed at, both not just at the person's expense, of course not, but in the sense of laughing at ourselves, at our history. Sometimes we need a good laugh from all the pain and suffering, not just we cause others, but to ourselves as Americans. And the truth is that, Fredrick Douglass's message, as we've heard, you replace slave with anyone that's suffering, and the message is constantly evergreen. And that's a sad truth. Of course, I read the most castigating sections of Fredrick Douglass's speech, but he actually starts out his speech sharing a great love and respect for people like the Founding Fathers, for great revolutionaries, for the people of America and everything, because of the potential that they have, the freedom that they fought for. He just wishes that they would drop their hypocrisy, which 100 years later, another great Black American, Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., would write a letter from Birmingham jail basically stating the same thing, that one of the greatest threats to equality, freedom, and liberation was the moderate, who said, not right now, maybe later, now it's not the time. And it's interesting because in Fredrick Douglass's speech as well, he says and castigates that exact same sort of person who, I guess they must have come on the Mayflower to be in America this long, too. To have that type of thinking and how it can rot the soul, really. How it can leave you in a certain state of thinking where you don't wish to branch out and see the suffering of your neighbor, to see the suffering of your family, and just tell them, maybe if you just wait a little while, it'll be okay. In my own queer community, we constantly make the joke that things get far less colorful on July 1st as soon as all the corporations decide they hate the gays again. And there's a certain joke, there's a certain sort of self-deprecating joke in that as well. We Americans are really good at this, But there is a certain truth to it. I mean, sometimes we leave Black History Month, Women's History Month, Pride, etc., and decide, that's it, That's it for the month, for the year, all good. And even members of the community also tend to do those things. It's just like, I have a neighbor in my neighborhood who puts out the pride flag every June, but takes it out July 1st. And I went over to his house once, and I was just like, happy Pride. He's from a gay family, has his husband, his kids and everything, very happy and everything. And the thing he told me was so fascinating is, I keep it up during June because I know I'm safe. And the rest of the time, I don't know if I'll be so safe. He's like, I have a husband and I have kids, And I asked him, and we started talking about different issues, trans rights, immigration, stuff like that. And he says, I don't want to push those things too much. What if they come back after me again? And so that's just to show that this sort of idea of sort of the holding back, the moderate conception of the progress of America isn't just for people who are not suffering, but also for people who are suffering and scared. Because that's something that's actually not addressed by Fredrick Douglass or even Dr. King as well. But the reality is that so many of us simply do not wish to be known in our opinions, and especially in times where there's political violence coming back, as it has existed in previous points of American history at multiple points. So part of that element is we have to have a little bit of compassion for each other. Yeah, definitely a lot of it, for sure. Because the more compassion we have for each other, the more we begin to understand one another. And part of that understanding is realizing an important thing, that to the suffering, the 4th of July can be simultaneously both a re-understanding of the American dream, but also being faced with the American nightmare. And it was, for me, growing up, I came from Panama, which was just war-torn by the United States. So my best friends, the 4th of July to them brings them back horrible memories of being raised in rural Texas under strict evangelical households, where the Pledge of Allegiance was more important than the Lord's Prayer. And that sort of thing, there's a certain thing we talk about sometimes of religious trauma, but we don't talk about patriotic trauma that can develop for people. That's not to say I don't love this country, and that's not to say that my friends or the people that are suffering don't love this country. We just hope that it loved us back as much as we want to love it. And that's the thing. Thank you. And that's the thing. It's too many times we get people whose heart is in the right place. They want to love their neighbor. They're patriotic in healthy ways, but they don't seem to understand sometimes when someone says, "I don't want to go to any July 4th barbecues," or "I don't want to see the fireworks," or they just want to stay home, reflect. For some people, it's a very sad time. For some people, it's a dangerous time. I remember in high school how I would go, of course, and don't tell my parents to sneak out on the 4th of July, grab some beers, and it's all right. I'm way over the age. The statute of limitations is gone. But we would grab some beers, very Texas sort of thing, set up on like a hill or a cliff or something and watch the fireworks go off. And I remember trying to get one of my friends, Manuel, and he would not come out. And he had immigrated from Mexico and everything like that. And he was just like, I just don't feel safe. And I asked him, I was young. I was just like, why? We're just going to be drinking beers, watching fireworks. Who cares? And he says to me, I'm undocumented. This is the worst day for me to be out. What if someone finds out? Me and my family are gone. And it was I remember that 4th of July because I could not really enjoy the fireworks, feeling the sort of sadness and, the sadness a teenager would have of not having their friend there with them, but also the sort of terror of knowing that while my family came here under the auspices of the U.S. government, so many of some of your ancestors did not come under the auspices of the U.S. government or came under far easier auspices. I mean, in New York, there was a little sign stating on the process sometimes for Ellis Island consisted of 3 steps: showing up, saying yes to 3 questions, and leaving. And now, as someone who is helping one of my partners actually immigrate to the United States, it's a whole effort, costs thousands of dollars, and it's one of those things that we've sort of let slide. Fredrick Douglass says in his speech that Americans have a bad propensity of forgetting the horrors in front of them, and sometimes have a bad propensity to let things get worse. And one of the things that we must not just as our beloved, wonderful Beacon community do, but as fellow Americans, fellow neighbors, and especially this weekend after the 4th of July, it's definitely tried to push for, a better world, a better country, a better community, whether that be high-level political reforms or just extending a helping hand in our neighborhood sometimes. It was interesting seeing how many sites there exist in New Jersey and New York for the Underground Railroad, and made me sort of happy to be here because of that, to know that there were people even back then during those suffering times who were willing to risk everything to lend a hand to their fellow American. And that's Fredrick Douglass, he mentions that sort of American. And he says to him, that's what makes him feel patriotic, to think about the Americans who were all about life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness for everyone. And, we all know that this country didn't start with that including everyone. I mean, half the people, or looking out, the majority of the people in this room would not have fit under very much that definition of what is an American citizen. For some of us, our vote may have counted even less, even if we were free. And now things, thankfully, have changed in a drastic manner. But there are still so many attempts, so many desires by, sadly, fellow Americans to sort of limit our freedoms, our ability to be, to engage in liberty, to love one another, to engage in solidarity, justice, all the things that we were raised with if we were raised in this country to think of as being part and parcel of being American. And as I said earlier, the terrors of slavery still do exist. I have a friend in the UK, Zerbanu Gifford. She used to be the executive director of Anti-Slavery UK. And, it was interesting because one of my, I'd like to say, loosely informed friends, he asked her, but isn't your job easy? There's no more slavery anymore. And all I could do was do my constant friendly eye roll that I've practiced throughout years of our friendship. And, but she answered it so perfectly. She was just like, no, that's an excellent thing to say because it just shows how we tend to hide from each other and from ourselves the reality of how bad it can be out there. And, I mentioned undocumented immigrants. I live in Texas where you can see signs everywhere, especially the closer you get to the border, that say, if you are being kept without pay, please call this number or report to so-and-so office. And it's interesting the wording that they use, because if I were in charge of that sign is, if you are being enslaved, because that is the very definition of it. Someone has grabbed your life and liberty from you and is forcing you to work without pay. That is slavery. The slavery still exists in the diamond and coal mines in Africa. The desire for slavery still exists in this very country and in others as well. There are those who not only wish to re-enslave my people, but wish to bring children back into the workforce, or to lower the amount that the average minimum wage employee gets paid, and so on and so forth. To sometimes, I saw a minimum wage discussion that said from a politician in Congress that maybe the employer should decide how much the employee is actually worth. And so, we must be on the watch, because these things do lead us to slip back into the worst possible system. Slavery, as Fredrick Douglass mentioned, is one of the greatest dark evils of American history and world history as a whole, especially the chattel slavery based on race like that. But I titled this sermon, what is the 4th of July to the suffering? And that's because let's expand our understanding as well. Maybe the American mindset cannot really comprehend the existence of modern slavery still, but it can understand suffering. It can understand the pain of, the queers who get bashed on their way back from a pride parade. It can understand the pain of a black employee doing their 110% passed over by another white employee because the boss is a racist. Or, we can understand the gender pay gap that exists between women and men, the removal of women's rights that is happening not just in this country but around the world. We can understand those levels of suffering. And the more and more we begin to understand them, the more we can understand how to make this country better, how to make our world better, and how to make the 4th of July a day that truly is as radically inclusive as Beacon is. And I think we can do that. I think too often we hear the news, and especially the news lately, and we lose hope. We look at the plans of, secret committees and, affinity organizations and the like that seek to, roll back everything to more oppressive times. But the reality is, as Dr. King said, the moral arc of the universe bends towards justice, and I fully believe that. But we have to be the ones that bend it. And as such, I ask you, and I close this out by saying, grab that internal fire, the fire of the chalice that burns within all of us, and use that inner fire to go out and spread the warmth of love to your community. Use that fire to fight for justice, for peace, for equality, and to make sure that every 4th of July, everyone in your neighborhood will be very happy to see those fireworks, to eat that food, and to have a fantastic time. Because I think we can head towards that point. But you also need to remember, right now, we're still not there. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Pablo. Catherine Lee Bates was a poet, a professor at Wellesley College, and a social activist who worked for women and immigrants to the country and people who are suffering from economic injustice. So in 1893, which was 131 years ago, the country was in the midst of a depression, and she wrote this poem, America, while she was standing near the top of Pikes Peak, looking over hundreds of miles of mountains and plains. And she said that it was an experience of joy. This poem that she wrote is about that sense of wonder and also her hope for how human beings can live up to our best ideals. So I invite you to rise in all ways possible. You should have the lyrics on a piece of paper. And if not, maybe you could share. And we'll sing America the Beautiful. Oh, beautiful for spacious skies, for amber waves of grain, for purple mountain majesties above thy fruited plain. America, America, God shed their grace on thee, and crown thy good with brotherhood from sea to shining sea. Oh, beautiful for heroes proved in liberating strife, who more than self their country loved, and mercy more than life. America, America, God shed their grace on thee, and crown thy good with brotherhood sea to shining sea.
Remain standing in whatever way possible. And as we do here at Beacon, please grab each other's wonderful, probably slightly sweaty hands. And I'll deliver a nice little benediction before I go off. May we, in the name of freedom and in the name of love, go out from these walls and spread that love and freedom to this beautiful, beautiful country so that we can only make it more and more gorgeous. Thank you.